Hey everyone, Davram, we're here again at the 50th anniversary of GenCon, and we're here at BattleTech, which is a computer-based game, and we're going to talk to Jordan here about what it is and the different features of it. I am a beta backer for it.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
No problem. It's an awesome game, and I can't wait to also discuss a new feature that just recently launched for the particular backers. So tell us a little bit, what is the concept behind BattleTech for those who may not necessarily be familiar with the history?
So BattleTech started as a tabletop board game 35 years ago, which was an embarrassingly long time. It is a tactical simulation set in the far future. Giant walking tanks called battle mechs are the interstellar weapon of choice as man takes to the stars, and kind of evolved back into a feudal system as they expanded into the stars. And there are 5 noble houses that are all beating on each other with the hopes of reclaiming the glory of the fallen Star League. And our game, the game came out 35 years ago. It's been hundreds of game products, literally over 200 novels, animated TV shows, 14 different video games over the years. And this game that we're doing is a kind of a return to the roots. It's a turn-based tactical game where you're controlling a lance or a squad of 4 mechs, and it takes place in the context of a mercenary simulation. So you're running a mercenary company, and on the battlefield you're controlling your mechs, and then every time you take damage, you got to pay to fix it. And so you negotiate contracts with the different political entities, and you're trying to keep your head above water. You earn reputation with the different entities as you go through the game. So there's the big campaign game. And then there are 2 other modes of play. There's a single-player skirmish mode where you can pick any of the maps, pick whatever mechs you want to control, and either pick or have the computer randomly generate mechs for you to fight against the AI. Or there's multiplayer skirmish, where you do the same, only you're playing against actual intelligent, well, all right, depending upon who your friends are.
Right.
But you're playing against a person across the internet.
And that feature just launched, right? The multiplayer.
Yeah, so we launched our beta for backers like you about a little over 7 weeks ago, and just this week on Thursday we did an update that included the multiplayer aspect, you said, so backers can start playing each other, and then also included a lot of tweaks to the game we'd released 7 weeks ago. We've been lucky enough; the backers have been playing a ton. We're well over 100,000 hours of play so far, and a huge amount of feedback, and we've been taking that feedback and then tweaking the game in response to it. So there's a lot of updates to balance and to some of the game systems and combat, and a major upgrade to the AI, so that's much harder now, which is fun, and then some new units. We have a new unit we put in this one called the Fire Starter, which features a weapon called the Flamer, which fires out flame and heats up the mechs. Heat is one of the limiting factors in battle mechs, because they generate a lot of heat, and eventually can be doing internal destruction damage and shut themselves down. And being a sitting duck on a battlefield is a bad thing.
Not good. Now, I know a lot of folks, specifically me, that one reason I got into this, I never played the tabletop version, but I did play a very popular shooter game, Mech Warrior. And now this is your top-down view of the battlefield, like a Age of Empires or like a Warhammer style game where you've got a map and you're trying to take certain points and defeat your enemy. So you're kind of the high overarching controller of these mechs.
That's right. Yeah, as we mentioned, there's been a lot of different video games in this fictional world, and some of the most popular were the Mech Warrior series. The Mech Warrior series are real-time shooters. You're inside the cockpit of a mech, and you're controlling a single mech. We also had the Mech Commander series, which were RTSs, real-time strategy games, where you controlled kind of a large number of mechs, and both of those are different than what we're doing here.
Right.
This one, as you said, is much more. I think the closest analogy is XCOM.
Yes.
It's turn-based, but it's very fluid. You're able to control your mechs in great detail because of the fact that it's turn-based, and there's a lot of tactics involved.
Absolutely, and we're just sitting here in the middle of the booth here at GenCon, and we can actually look at all these players and the waiting list has been crazy. People want to get their hands on being able to play this game, and so I just wanted to ask a couple questions about your mech. Can you upgrade it? Are there weapon features? Can you basically, obviously you've got the different pilots, but how do you go about building a more customizable or upgraded mech from maybe the starters?
So it's a great question, and it's one of the fundamentals of the franchise and of this game is that ability to customize. Mm-hmm. So we have what's called the Mech Lab, and your base of operations is a interstellar ship called the Argo, and it's a Hulk that you manage to kind of rescue, and then you're rebuilding it over the course of the game. And investing in the Mech Lab is one of the key things to do. The Mech Lab allows you to not only repair damage that you've seen on the battlefield, but to customize the mech, swap out weapons, change where armor is allocated, internal structure, heat sinks, all the jump jets, allowing them to temporarily fly. All those things are things that you can customize on the mechs. So it does become highly customizable. Now, that said, we have put a little constraints on there because we wanted the mechs to be identifiable. And so if a weapon hardpoint is a energy weapon hardpoint, then you can't put a missile in there.
Right.
But there are 20 different energy weapons that you could put in there. You could put one giant PPC, or you could put 5 small lasers, right? Mm-hmm. And they're going to get very different performance out of that. So there is still a lot of flexibility, but at least identifiable nature of the fact that that's an energy weapon, or that's a missile, or a ballistic weapon.
Now, in playing the game, are there? You mentioned the heat and the different ways to kind of cause damage, disable mechs. Are players finding that? Well, I just want to build a whole squad of rocket mechs versus players who are maybe, I want a laser mech and I want an energy weapon mech or a rocket mech. What would you say the different players are building, and who is becoming the most effective?
Well, this is exactly why we love the beta, because it's giving us a really large sample size. Like I say, 100,000 hours of play so far gives us a lot of data to pull from to make sure that there isn't a killer combo. Right. What you don't want is that, there's one design that just trumps everything, and then the whole game becomes about that one design. Right. And so we're really looking to make sure that doesn't happen to the best of our abilities. We view the damage in kind of a triangle fashion in this game. There's the damage a weapon it does, and that's damage to the armor. And once it penetrates armor, it can get in and start destroying internal components such as your weapon systems, your heat sinks, so on. Right. Then there's heat. Now, heat is generated when you do things like fire weapons, use jump jets, right? Or when you're attacked with something that generates heat, like a flamer, right? Heat is an interesting governor, if you will. And when you get too hot, you shut down. When you shut down, you're much easier to hit, and B, the opponent gets to do a called shot, so they can actually decide what body segment they want to shoot. The third leg of that triangle is stability. Right, so these are big, giant walking mechs, right? And the old saying, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. And so being able to keep your guys stable is important. Different weapons, such as, for instance, missiles, which tend to distribute their their damage, so they're not as good as piercing armor,
right.
But they also do stability damage. So they'll rock the guy, right? Melee. Melee also does a fair amount of damage, but it also does a lot of stability damage. And the reason that stability is important is that if you can get a mech to fall down, then it takes time for them to stand back up. And while they're down, again, you can do called shots on them. So we kind of view that as the heat and the stability are both tools you're using to be able to inflict more damage and target that damage more specifically.
Lots of tactics in that.
That's the goal.
Now, you mentioned when a mech takes damage, let's say maybe an arm damage or something like that. What does the controller, the player, have as a way to repair these mechs on the battlefield? So, because obviously they want to try to last as long as they can and win. What options do the players have real time to fix these components?
In this first game, none. Each battlefield engagement, you have to do with what you got to win it with what you brought.
Good.
And so there isn't any kind of mid-mission repair in this first game. It's something we're looking at potentially adding in the future. But of course, between missions is the key thing. right? Right now we're all playing skirmish. In skirmish, people just basically battle to the death, right? When you're in the midst of a mercenary economic sim, right, now all of a sudden when you lose an arm, you're like, oh my God, that was really expensive,
right?
You know, and you don't want to have a mech warrior like you're like a guy who've really trained up on scouting. We didn't touch on that before, but your earlier question about the mech warrior abilities, well, those are, you're managing their careers and you're taking them up through skill trees, and so, you know, a guy you've really got trained up, he's a great scout. You don't want him sitting in the hospital forever. So, you know, if all of a sudden he takes damage, you may pull that scout back. Or if his mech's in damage, you may hit punch out, right, and get him out of the mech before he can get killed or seriously wounded. So yeah, you're really going to manage those things differently in the context of the campaign than you do in you know, the straight up.
It would be the concept of you've trained up this pilot. He has specific skills. You know, you could put a highly trained pilot into a different mech and still have success. But if you lose that pilot, you've lost all that work and your skills.
Exactly right. So you're really managing your damage, your economics, and the other axes to the sim game is time. Everything takes time.
Right.
That mech warrior, if he's wounded, it will take time for him to heal or her to heal. You know, if you lost an arm, it takes time for your mech tech crew to retrofit and put one on there. But of course, while you're waiting for that, you're paying salaries, you're paying upkeep on the ship. You know, money keeps costing you money. So between those factors, I think in the sim game you're going to find yourself often having to go into battle in less than ideal circumstances with, you know, mechs that are quietly damaged, you know, greener pilots than you would ideally like to use because your more experienced one is still recuperating in the hospital. So, and I think that creates an interesting tension for players.
Now, you mentioned all the play hours that have gotten in there, and you've mentioned, you know, we've got a lot of folks here, and the feedback that you've been receiving. As someone like myself who does a lot of online content creation, the community is a really big piece. Speak to the value of the BattleTech community that you've had here on the forums and how they're helping you drive your development now and in the future.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, this game very literally wouldn't exist without you know, without that community support. Yeah, so community is critical. I mean, it's a fact to say this game would not exist without the support of the BattleTech and MechWarrior fan group. You know, 2 years ago we did a Kickstarter, and that Kickstarter was oversubscribed to a fantastic amount and dramatically grew the scale of this game. And that audience has been there to support us ever since. You know, through obviously through the play of the beta, but even in their forum discussions, in you know, in their communication with us, enormously supportive people. And actually, we had a conference, a little talk yesterday. No, actually, it wasn't yesterday. It was just this morning. Time at convention, where it was about making the game. And one of the things I really emphasized is that that community has been fantastic, not just in financial support, but also in the way they're interacting with each other. They're having, even when they disagree or they're discussing a feature or a balance, it's with great respect to each other. It's not just become slam fests, it's really become a collaborative discussion, and that is fantastic. That means we're getting really good information rather than we're just getting hyperbole, you know? And we read all those forums. We look at every time you play the game. When you play the beta, at the end, there's a survey.
Right.
And there's a large number of questions, and randomly you're getting asked questions from within that at the end of every play session. And we really take that data back and really incorporate it as well. So this is a symbiotic relationship between us and the community.
And the last question I kind of want to talk to you about is, you mentioned the original backers, obviously the financial support that's been driving you to this point. If someone is interested in BattleTech, how do they get access to the beta? Is there a way that they can still jump in the ball game, help you guys continue that development, and push you closer and closer to the official release? Yeah,
I appreciate that. Yeah, we still do have opportunity to join the beta. If you go to battletechgame.com, there's an opportunity there to join at the beta level, get involved in the beta, which will run for a couple more months now. I think we'll be running the beta before we shut it down, so that we can just take all the data and focus on the final push for the game. The game is scheduled to come out early next year, and you know, we're just heads down working on the campaign. But yeah, so there's still an opportunity to get involved at BattleTechGame.com, and then of course it'll be on Steam and Humble Bundle and our publisher Paradox on their website, so on, early next year when it comes out.
Excellent. Well, thank you for your time today. Thank you for giving us all this great information. We'll make sure we put the link down in the comments of the video so people can get there. And I can't wait. I'm leaving tomorrow from the convention. I can't wait to get home and download so I can play the new multiplayer, because I've been scratching to get a hold of that and be able to play against other people.
Well, thank you for that enthusiasm and all your support,
Yes.
and thank you for all of your support to help us make this game, and even just playing whatever form of BattleTech or MechWarrior over the years. It's all helped bring us to this point, and we could not be more appreciative. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. There we go.
There you go. Thank you.